In 1993, a man named Elwood Edwards sat down in his living room in Groveland, Ohio, pointed a cassette recorder at himself, and read 4 short phrases into a microphone. Welcome. You've got mail. Files done. Goodbye. His wife worked for a contractor at Quantum Computer Services, the company that was about to rebrand itself as America Online. She'd volunteered him for the job. He was paid $200.
Those 4 recordings became the most heard human voice in the digital age. By the late 1990s, You've Got Mail was playing in tens of millions of homes every single day. It was a catchphrase, a movie title, a cultural touchstone for an entire generation's first encounter with electronic communication. Elwood Edwards recorded it on consumer-grade equipment in a residential living room for the cost of a decent suit. AOL never paid him another cent.
$200, and he had no idea what he was walking into. What AOL eventually became, from that living room cassette tape to a $165 billion merger, from 4 phrases to 30 million subscribers, is incomprehensible.
And it starts, as these things often do, with someone else's idea.
We covered CompuServe and Prodigy in Act 2, the metered pricing, the censorship, the communities that formed despite every friction the platforms created. But they matter here too, because they're the landscape AOL walked into. CompuServe charged by the hour and couldn't figure out that people signed on for each other, not the content. Prodigy tried flat-rate pricing and banner ads, then penalized its most active users and censored its own message boards. Both of them figured out pieces of what the internet could be. Neither figured out that the product was the people.
AOL charged by the hour, too, at first. What was different was the front door. 500 free hours on a disc that came in the mail, fell out of magazines, dropped out of cereal boxes, sat in stacks at the checkout counter. You weren't getting 1, you were getting 3, 4, 5 a month without trying. It was impossible to avoid. An interface that used plain English and primary colors. A welcome screen that felt like someone was glad you showed up. When AOL moved to flat-rate pricing in 1996, the subscriber base exploded. But the discs had already done the work. They'd put AOL in front of everyone in America who owned a computer repeatedly until someone put one in.
The company that figured it out was, on paper, the least likely candidate. AOL's origin story reads like a startup cautionary tale that accidentally became a triumph.
The company that became America Online started life in 1983 is Control Video Corporation, selling a download service for Atari game cartridges. The product flopped. The company nearly died. It restructured, renamed itself Quantum Computer Services, pivoted through several platforms, and in 1991 relaunched as America Online. The man running it was Steve Case, a marketer, not a technologist. That distinction shaped everything.
Because Case understood something neither CompuServe's engineers nor Prodigy's corporate backers had fully grasped. The barrier to going online wasn't price, it wasn't content, it was confusion.
CompuServe was powerful, but opaque, command-line driven, designed by and for people who already understood computers. Prodigy was friendlier, but rigid, a corporate product that felt corporate. AOL's insight was almost embarrassingly simple. Make it warm. Make it approachable. Make the first experience feel like walking into a room where someone's already smiling at you. Welcome. You've got mail. The interface used primary colors, large icons, plain English. Chat rooms had names like 30-something, and romance connection. You didn't navigate a directory tree. You clicked on pictures. AOL wasn't selling technology. It was selling the feeling of belonging somewhere. By the late 1990s, AOL was closing in on 20 million subscribers. By 2000, it had crossed that threshold and was still climbing. At its absolute peak, over 30 million. For a brief period in the late 1990s, roughly half of all home internet connections in America went through AOL.
Half.
Half of American homes that were online through a single company, a single login screen, a single set of rules, a single billing relationship. But what those 30 million subscribers were actually using, for most of them, was not the internet. It was AOL. The chat rooms, sorted by interest and age, where people were meeting strangers and finding their people. The buddy list, a small window showing who was online, and the away message, where you'd write something funny or cryptic and leave it up while you were gone. AIM, the sound of "you've got mail" arriving in your inbox. Sports columnists, message boards, AOL News, an entire content ecosystem living inside the wall. AOL was proto-social media a decade before anyone used that phrase. The open web, the actual internet Berners-Lee built, was secondary. Most subscribers could go weeks without clicking outside AOL and never notice.
And your screen name was you, not your real name, a chosen identity you built, carried, and protected. XOXO Girl 1987, Dark Knight 42. The screen name was how people knew you online, sometimes for years. AOL didn't just give you access to the internet, it gave you an alter ego to bring with you.
The pipe was almost beside the point.
And the wall wasn't as clean as the welcome screen implied. AOL chat rooms were also where you got your password phished. Someone in an IM window claiming to be AOL support, asking you to verify your account. Where teenagers ran hacking toolkits lifting credit card numbers out of conversations. Where predators built personas in chat rooms targeting minors. Eventually, so visibly that Dateline NBC built an entire investigative franchise around catching them. The warm, friendly room had a genuinely dark corner. AOL couldn't control what happened inside its own walls while censoring its message boards.
What Al Gore was watching from Washington was a private company becoming the primary way Americans experienced everything the government had helped build. Gore had spent years arguing that federal investment in technology infrastructure would compound. The High-Performance Computing Act had funded the backbone. The Information Superhighway Initiative had framed the Internet as public infrastructure worth protecting. And now, a single company had become the Internet for half the country.
The publicly funded network, the open protocols, the research infrastructure, all of it was running underneath AOL. But for 30 million subscribers, the internet wasn't TCP/IP or the World Wide Web or anything open. It was a blue and white window with a toolbar at the top and a keyword search bar in the middle. AOL was the internet for the majority of American households, not a gateway to it, a replacement for it.
The walled garden was working spectacularly.
Until it wasn't. On January 10, 2000, AOL and Time Warner announced a merger valued at $165 billion, the largest in American history at that time. To understand why two companies this different agreed to it, you have to understand what each of them was afraid of.
AOL had 30 million subscribers and no real content. Everything inside the wall, the news, the sports columns, the entertainment, was licensed or aggregated.
The open web was already proving that search and free content could replace what AOL curated. AOL needed content it owned outright, content that couldn't be replicated somewhere else for free. Movies, cable news, premium television. Time Warner had all of the content: CNN, HBO, Warner Bros., Time Magazine, a film library stretching back decades.
Time Warner had all of that and no way into the internet. They could see what was coming, the shift from broadcast and print to digital, and they had no pipe, no subscriber base, no digital infrastructure. AOL had 30 million households already paying every month. That was the distribution Time Warner desperately wanted.
HBO streaming to AOL's 30 million subscribers before it reached anywhere else. CNN integrated into AOL's News tab. Warner Bros. Movies available online exclusively to AOL members first. Old media content married to new media distribution, locked together, self-reinforcing, unbeatable.
AOL was the acquirer, not Time Warner. The internet company was buying the media empire.
That's what the stock price said. AOL's market capitalization, inflated by the dot-com bubble, was so enormous it could swallow a company with decades of real assets: cable infrastructure, film libraries, news organizations, publishing houses. Time Warner brought everything else and lost much of it.
The theory collapsed immediately. The deal closed in January 2001, and within months, the dot-com bubble burst. AOL's stock cratered. The cultures couldn't merge. Time Warner's executives thought AOL was a gimmick. AOL's executives thought they'd won. And the content never moved online fast enough. The broadband infrastructure to stream HBO didn't exist in most American homes yet. The synergies required a future that hadn't arrived.
The accounting reckoning came within a year. The $165 billion deal had been paid in AOL stock, and AOL stock was built on the bubble. When the bubble burst, the premium AOL had paid for Time Warner, recorded on the balance sheet as goodwill, had to be written down to reflect what the assets were actually worth. The write-down came to $99 billion, not cash that walked out the door. The accounting recognition of how badly they'd overpaid, showing up as the largest annual loss in American corporate history.
Ted Turner held roughly $9 billion in Time Warner stock. He converted it to AOL Time Warner shares as part of the deal. When the stock collapsed, he lost approximately $8 billion. He later put it plainly, "I lost more money than anyone in the history of capitalism." He wasn't far off.
Jeff Bewkes, who would later become Time Warner's CEO, called it the biggest mistake in corporate history. The AOL name was dropped from the corporate title in 2003. Time Warner spent the next decade trying to amputate the merger, and eventually succeeded, spinning AOL off as a separate company in 2009. The AOL subscriber base didn't collapse for one reason, it collapsed for three simultaneously. The pipe got slower than broadband, cable and DSL offered speeds AOL's dial-up modems couldn't touch, and even before broadband, the pipe was under attack on price. NetZero, Juno, Earthlink, free or near-free dial-up ISPs that put you on the open web without an AOL subscription. Why pay $19.95 a month for a walled garden when NetZero would connect you to the whole internet for free? For millions of people, there was no longer an answer to that question.
The content escaped at the same time, and the dot-com boom accelerated it. Every traditional media company, every sports franchise, every brand wanted a dot-com presence because an internet business inflated your valuation. ESPN.com, CNN.com, sports columnists launching their own sites, content creators and media companies were being pulled onto the open web by their own financial incentive. The content didn't just leak out of AOL, it was being actively recruited away from the wall.
And the social layer, the thing that was actually AOL, became portable. In 1996, 4 young Israelis built an instant messaging application called ICQ. It ran on the open internet, outside any subscription, for free. 12 million users signed up before AOL noticed. AOL bought the thing that was training people to message outside the wall, and then largely left it alone, running separately, quietly competing with their own AIM product.
MSN Messenger and Yahoo Messenger followed, and then Trillian appeared. A single application that pulled your AIM contacts, your ICQ contacts, your MSN and Yahoo contacts into one window, one buddy list, every network, no subscription required. AOL repeatedly patched AIM to break Trillian's access. Cerulean Studios, the small team that built Trillian, reverse-engineered each patch and pushed a fix within days. AOL patched again. Trillian fixed it again. At least 4 or 5 rounds, publicly, until it became an embarrassment, a company visibly trying to trap its own users inside a fence they kept escaping.
When the FCC approved the Time Warner merger in 2001, they attached a condition. AOL would have to make AIM interoperable with competing services before it could bundle advanced features like streaming video into it. The government saw the buddy list as a potential choke point and tried to get ahead of it. AOL never built those advanced features, the condition never triggered, and the FCC quietly dropped the whole rule in 2003.
AOL no longer controlled access to its own product. The away message, the double-click to open a chat, the window showing who was online, all of it was running on someone else's software for free.
AOL's subscribers weren't loyal to AOL. They were loyal to the buddy list, and when the buddy list was free, they left.
The same logic that built AOL killed it. People chose the easiest path. AOL was easier than a BBS. AIM without a subscription was easier than AIM with one.
And something better was already there the whole time, the open web, the thing running underneath AOL's walled garden from the beginning.
Hotmail offered free email. Yahoo offered free news and search. GeoCities let anyone build a website. Google made the open web navigable. Every service AOL bundled behind its login screen became available on the open internet for free.
The wall didn't fall because someone attacked it. The wall became irrelevant because everything inside it was available outside it.
And the people who left, the broadband subscribers who ditched AOL, the users who discovered they could just open a browser and go anywhere, they were rejoining the open network. The thing Cerf and Kahn had built, the thing Gore had funded, the decentralized, nobody owns it, anybody can build on it internet. AOL had conquered the open network for about 5 years, and then the open network reconquered its own users. 30 million people walked out of AOL's walled garden and onto the open web. For now.
You keep saying that.
Because 3 companies were watching AOL's collapse, and they learned the lesson that AOL's failure actually taught. AOL failed because it built a wall and charged admission. The next generation wouldn't charge anything. They'd make the wall invisible. They'd make you believe you were on the open web while they captured every click, every search, every social connection, and turned it into something AOL never figured out how to build. A business model that doesn't need a wall, because when the product is free, the users don't leave. They don't even know they're inside.
The epilogue takes another 20 years to play out. Verizon bought AOL in 2015 for $4.4 billion, then bought Yahoo, tried to combine them into something called Oath. That failed too. Apollo Global Management bought the whole thing in 2021 for $5 billion.
America Online went from half of American homes to the largest merger in American history to a legal entity name still living inside another fallen internet darling.
Pulse Deep Dive presents Al Gore Invented the Internet, produced by Singularity Pulse Network. This series is for informational and educational purposes only. Historical accounts are sourced from published research, reporting, and public record. Some timelines are condensed for narrative clarity. Nothing in this series constitutes legal, financial, or technical advice. Views expressed are those of the hosts and do not represent the positions of any organization mentioned.
Origins is a different kind of show. Every Sunday, we investigate the forces that shape the modern world, the geography, the science, the commerce, the decisions made centuries ago that are still playing out today. Find it wherever you listen to this podcast.
I'm Caden. The Pulse Brief is every weekday, 10 minutes. AI, space, crypto, cybersecurity, what matters most today? Find it wherever you listen.